Here we go again. It's part 3 of the World Eaters Dreadnaught, and I'm having a good time. I really think I'm going to have to do a Leviathan with 2 drills, the same as this miniature at some point. But anyway, let's get this one done first. And where we left it last time, we were working on the blood, and I was getting way too carried away and realised, well, I haven't done the metallics, and the blood needs to be over the top of the metallics. So yeah, I'm going to finish all those parts first, and then we'll carry on with the blood and more weathering. So yeah, I think the crucial thing in this video is painting metallics and also using oil washes and weathering with the oil paints, which we haven't done yet. Absolutely 0 prizes for guessing the base coat of the bronze. In fact, at this point, I'm almost like, shall I even put the title up or say it? But yeah, it's decayed metal. I was thinking about using some Pro Acryl bronze. It's a very dark colour, but I think decayed metal is actually probably easier for a lot of you to get hold of, and I was kind of just using something different for the sake of it. So yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I am going to use a different sort of recipe and do some different highlights rather than usually we use this for gold or something like that. But I'm looking to make a bronze with this decayed metal. So yeah. So you can see why we use it. It's just so smooth. It looks fantastic. And what I'm going to do now is add some light bronze from Pro Acryl. So this colour is fantastic. You've seen me recommend it before. So with the bronze, I probably use these colours for gold, and I just use something like Elven Gold in between. So essentially we're skipping that middle tone of gold, and that's what brings all the yellow to the recipe and makes it feel like a gold. In this, we're using the dark decayed metal, and I'm skipping to that silverish colour. And this is going to be more desaturated, less tone in it, which will fit the World Eaters very well. I don't want a yellow gold because then it's going to contrast too much to the red, in my opinion. So you can see on this World Eater symbol on the other side, it already looks fantastic with one highlight of the mix of light bronze and decayed. And now I'm just going up to pure light bronze. And with metallics, I'm really not worried about, having loads of definition and highlighting every part. I'm really trying to treat it as a general shape, which is why on this world symbol, you can see I'm just putting highlights to the top, just to bring the attention there. So I'm not going to edge highlight or, detail any of the parts down the bottom. I'm really just focused on the general view. And I do like to highlight metallics, of course, but actually, if I'm using metallics, I kind of want them to do the work, and I don't like to sort of overly render them the same as I would do non-metallic metal. I kind of pick and choose between which technique I'm going to use, and if it's metallics, I love to use them in a very simple way. So this was 3 steps for this bronze. I want to apply them really nicely, and as you can see, I'm taking my time and I'm picking out some of these edges on the top area, but really my focus is to just paint them very generally and add to how we highlighted the red and the white and things like that. But yeah, don't worry about doing too many stages for your metallics. Apply them smoothly and just let them do the work for you. They're almost like a special effect in my view. And yeah, I think all those kind of but classic techniques we think of maybe a base coat, a wash and a highlight, I think for metallics it really works. You've just got to take your time. So you can see the sort of pace I'm working at here in this clip, just carefully going around and highlighting it. And again, like we said with the chipping, there's not many stages here, so why not do few stages but spend the time doing these nicely? And I think that's definitely the way to go for your gaming stuff. You can see that big symbol is looking really cool, and I've really just added highlights to the top only, and the bottom of it is just that kind of plain decayed metal really, and it looks absolutely fine. I think that's kind of it for the bronze. The main thing is to get the tone right, so using a very dark colour like decayed, skipping to a silverish colour such as light bronze, means, like I said, you're missing out that middle tone that makes gold gold. And personally, I like this because it's quite low contrast with the red. And, you know, a lot of people have said, why haven't you done the blue? It's a great contrast, but I really like just having the white and red. That's kind of all I wanted in this miniature. Keep it simple. And I think if I had a very yellow gold, it would, contrast too much to the red. And I prefer this kind of low contrast look. And I definitely think that suits the World Eaters more. So let's move on to the silvers now, and we'll do them in a similar, simple approach. I recently discovered that adding, decayed metal to Iron Warriors looks awesome, and as you can see, it goes on really smooth, and you just get that brown tint that I'm always looking for in my silvers. And I normally get this from adding washes to get a brown tint, but in this case, a touch of decayed metal, I think, really makes a nice tone, and the scale paints go on very smoothly, so it kind of adds to that. I actually haven't used the Scale 75 silvers for a long time, just because I bought them ages ago and they kind of ran out. So I think I'll pick those up again and see if I like them. I remember them not being as good as the sort of bronze and golds, and sticking to my GW, but when it comes to, bronze, gold, copper colours, I love Scale 75. For pretty much all of the silver areas, I just added some chrome to the Iron Warriors. I don't own a fantastic mid-level silver, so I just own that dark Iron Warriors and the very, very bright chrome, and I always just make a mix. And on some sort of key areas, like the rivets around the front, I did use pure chrome, just to draw focus to those and also do very detailed dots. Also, our sort of spiky halo, I thought, I'll do some nice highlighting on that as it's a focal area. But for most parts, I just did one little highlight. And honestly, I don't think you need to do a lot more than that. A couple scratches and chips with a paler silver and then a wash. Like I said with the gold, I really think you can let the metallics do the work, especially when it comes to tabletop stuff. I just want pretty looking metallics applied well. With the exhausts, I base coated them that Iron Warriors mix, and here I am just kind of overbrushing / dry brushing them with chrome. This is actually slightly diluted on my wet palette, and I'm not really getting all of the paint off like a pure dry brush. I'm just trying to get it on really, really smoothly. You could airbrush it to get it perfect, and also make sure it goes into the holes of the exhausts. I think a lot of people, including myself, think of these exhausts maybe the wrong way, and looking at something like a truck's exhaust, it's kind of a silver tube within a silver tube, and I guess the holes are kind of like vents. When I did my fell blade in 2016, I did hollow out and drill these holes, but I replaced it with a pipe running down the center, so you had that hollow gap that you would see in a real life exhaust. So I like to paint them silver and then get a wash around the hole, so you've kind of defined that. But I think actually the inner bit should probably be silver as opposed to pure black, unless you paint the upper pipe pure black, and then that would be fine. But just bear it in mind. I've seen people drill out the exhausts and then not replace the center. I actually did that on my Sons of Horus Dread, and I haven't put a new pipe in it. So hopefully you haven't followed my bad example there. I'm trying out the new Nuln Oil, by the way, and after I ran it into the recesses, I thought I'd airbrush the tops to kind of give it a smoky look. I tried diluted first of all, and there's just no need to dilute it. I would just run it in there neat. But it works really well as a translucent black to kind of smoke things. And the new one isn't so matte and horrible. So I really like this new Nuln Oil. I would definitely replace your old one with it. I ended up adding some matte black, and I had sort of the translucent black to transition it in, and the very tops I just went in and airbrushed a matte black. And these effects are both quite easy to use by brush, so by all means just brush it on. But I love the look when you airbrush like translucent black over metallics. You just get that really nice, soft, natural kind of fade. I thought I'd do the exhausts differently to my Sons of Horus Dread, because you could just watch that tutorial and yeah, put some colours like I did on that, but make sure you bear in mind to replace the pipe and not leave them hollow like I did. With metallics done, I can get back to the blood, and I start with some more of that burnt red from Vallejo, and because I had the airbrush out for the silver, that's why I decided to do that now. And yeah, I just gradually built that up, and yeah, it started to work a lot better. I kind of stopped myself because I realised I needed to finish all those metallics first. After balancing the metals with that burnt red misting like I did in the previous video, now it was time for the blood for the blood god. So this was going to be the fresh blood that I added over the top of the kind of dried blood or misting. And just like the weathering, yeah, these different layers of blood I think's what makes it convincing. After recording this audio, I obviously posted some pictures and stuff, and people were very complimentary about the blood, which was great, because I think when I was halfway through painting this Dreadnaught, I actually wasn't convinced I liked what I was doing, so it was quite nice to get a bit of a confidence boost that the blood didn't look terrible. But I think, yeah, the key is exactly the same as weathering. You need multiple layers with different types of blood, not just one. So we obviously had the heavy stains that we copied from David Soper's verdigris technique. We did some misting with the pale red, and now we're doing some glossy red. So yeah, 4 different kinds of blood, I guess, and that's why it looks better in my opinion. Just gotta be patient to do those different layers, imagining they were on him at different times and for different reasons. You know, if he stamped someone and it squished him, or if he was cutting somebody with his claws. All lovely stuff. I started to work on the Dark Angel for the base, which is really important because I think having the corpse kind of justifies how bloody the Dreadnaught is and sets the scene. And also, I think Henry is going to do Dark Angels, so this is a nice representation on what would happen if we played a game, so it's kind of perfect. And actually, I was doing this quickly because it's just a mini on the base, but doing that, I discovered a very efficient way to do black, and I just skipped to a very bright grey, well, not very bright, but a bright grey for a black highlight, and that was the Mechanicus standard grey. As opposed to going through a dark grey and building it up, I went straight to this colour, and I did my best to do tight highlights, but of course I couldn't get them perfectly fine. So all I did was go back to the black, dilute it heavily to form a glaze, and then I just sprayed that, covering a little bit of the grey highlight, and this blended it in, sort of creating a new third colour, and then just, you know, making those highlights finer and thinner too. And this is definitely a really great way of doing black armour. I think if I was doing a tabletop Dark Angels army, I'd probably do something like this. Saves a lot of time as opposed to building up through the greys, and that standard grey is definitely sort of enough contrast, I think. Certainly if you want that kind of not overly rendered look, and I think it's perfect for the base because it doesn't distract too much. I quickly did the silvers exactly the same way as I did the Dreadnaught silvers. I did them at the same time actually. And once I'd done that, I could do the oil wash for the Dreadnaught and this miniature going on the base. But yeah, really like the look of that Dark Angel. I think the black looks great considering how simple it is. I must not do Dark Angels. I'll leave that to Henry. The thing about oil washes is they're so diverse. And I say oil washes, what I mean is using oil paints for weathering. I used them in, I guess, 3 different thicknesses, and at these different dilutions you can do different things with them. So I'm going to put a side-by-side picture of the kind of midpoint of the Dreadnaught and then the finished photo. You can see the white looks very different, and that's mostly due to a filter with an oil wash. And the cool thing is when you dilute it a lot, it kind of holds itself together and it doesn't split and look horrible. And I just did a very, very diluted a glaze or filter, whatever you want to call it, over most of the white. And this helped to make it a little more subdued without overly tinting it, making a mess like a normal wash would do. And it just ties everything together, and I think this really helped me be more satisfied with that actually. You look at it side by side, and I feel in the first picture the white's just looking a little too clean, a little too bright. Even though we've got lots of damage on it, it's kind of the overall white as if it's got no dust and things like that on it. And then going back to those original arts, it's got that really gritty feel, and you can see the white has absolutely no purity to it. And I think that's why I like this before and after. It's because the second one has just that little bit of a brown tint to the white, but it's not messy or over the top, and it just knocks everything back and makes it feel good. And yeah, I just wanted to say this at this point because you could just use acrylics, but oils really come into their own when it comes to this kind of thing. And also, it's really fun. So if you're watching this tutorial and you've done a bunch of oils before, then of course you know. But if you haven't tried them, don't be afraid. I would say it's easier. It's really fun. The only thing is you need to buy them. And let's face it, if you're in this hobby, you've probably bought enough stuff. So get yourself some thinners and a couple oil paints, and you'll just have a great time. So anyway, let's go for it and add these oil paints. I haven't got those snazzy metal trays that Henry uses. I must get some. So this is just a base with some tin foil. And I'm using raw umber for this because raw umber is a little bit colder as opposed to something like burnt umber. So the first way I'm going to use it, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of this oil in here, and I'm going to add a lot of thinners, and this is going to basically make a very diluted filter or wash, glaze, whatever you want to call it. But the first thing I do with the oils is a very diluted version basically. And I'm of course using Sans Odor for this. I'm using a worn out good quality brush. It's just had its day, it's got no point, but it's good enough for this. And you can see how diluted I'm making this, just getting it the right thickness, but it's very, very thin in that puddle there. I'm just going to do this kind of all over this model because, you know, he's been thrown into the dirt, but mostly I'm focusing on the silvers. But on the black, it's really nice doing this oil wash because it clings to all the detail and you just get a subtle tint of brown, and that makes it more visually interesting. So absolutely love this look when it's dry. I do the same thing for the silvers on the Dreadnaught, and like I said, we painted them so simply with just a little highlight, but this teeny wash just adds a little more depth and interest to it. And it mats them down a touch, but in the right way, so I absolutely love the look of an oil wash over metallics. Here I'm applying a very diluted wash kind of over the white. I'm kind of focusing on the rivets here and following that, but later I'll do some more focused drips. But doing this very pale pass to start with just tints the whole thing a little bit, and that makes your drips not so stark. And I think that's the key with weathering, is you don't just want one type, like I keep saying, otherwise it does look stark. But if you layer it up in this way, it almost introduces the thicker layers with the oil wash. And if you don't like it, you can just get some thinner and wipe it off, no problem. But you can see it just tints it ever so slightly, and I think it looks absolutely wonderful. Now I'm going to put some thick undiluted paint around the rivets, and I'm going to sort of draw the brush down to do a drip shape, and then we'll go to our neat thinners to fade that out. I have to wait for that first layer to dry, by the way, so I actually did that really thin bit in the morning before work, and then when I came back from work it had dried nicely because it was a hot day, and I could carry on and do these thicker parts. So you can see I put a massive blob on this side one, and that would be normally very scary over white, but just going in with this diluted thing now, I can make a perfect fine little drip, and you've got loads and loads of working time, almost forever, with the oil, which is why it's so cool to use. But I like the staining around the drip where it's kind of diluted, and that's why it looks so good, because you have this amazing translucency, and you can just make these drip look very natural. Acrylics give you control, but the way the oil dries, I think, just looks more realistic. And yeah, you can see how much fun I'm having here. I've just put really thick paint on, and then I'm just adjusting it and changing it. And if you don't like anything, you can just put some clean thinners on and erase it. The only thing to bear in mind there is, even if you really get most of it off, you will have tinted the whites slightly, and that's absolutely fine. You can see I've almost erased that drip, probably because I had too much thinner on my brush, so yeah, be aware of that. But I really like that drip on the left, or his right hand rivet. That one's turned out really nicely. It does take a bit of practice doing drips with this stuff, and yeah, just have a go. If it doesn't go well first time, just yeah, try again, and that's the beauty of it. Maybe try on something that's not important if you've got a really special model, but I was fine just messing around with this. I knew it was super heavily weathered, and so I couldn't go too far wrong. Here you can see on this bottom drip, I'm just moving the brush up and down and gradually fading it in. I'm not amazing at using these, but I always have fun with them, and I just keep trying until I get the look I want. I think it's good to have some drips that are really faded and subtle, and then some that are more obvious and thick, and that's the beauty of doing this with oil paints. Well, it's time to finish this Dreadnaught, I think, and I haven't done the eyes. I normally do that first, so I'm going to use this blood red from AK, give that a try. I tried this light orange, but I later replaced it with an AK orange. This golden yellow, though, is fantastic. That's the key paint here. Again, I've got my Sons of Horus tutorial, and I didn't want to repeat that, especially since I'm going to do orange eye lenses again. So I thought I'd go for a more glowy method and have the lighting in the center of the eye. So yeah, then you've got two different options how you want your eyes to look if you watch the tutorials. So I've got that dark red base coat, which could be corn red, and then I'm just going to do the blood red in the very center of the lens. I did a thin layer of red around the edge on the white to sort of introduce the glow. And I think this was a mistake. I should have done the orange. So I built it up with the orange later, and I think the red was just a little bit too strong. I want a subtle glow that's tinting the white. And also I did it a little too big, so I had to neaten it up. So just try and do this nice and fine, but the red's looking cool at this point. I tried using that Vallejo orange and it was a bit too watery, so I switched it out for that intense AK one, and it's just got better coverage. Maybe actually I just hadn't shaken the Vallejo one enough, but anyway. Now I just layered on the orange again in the center and slightly smaller this time. And then just take that orange and edge highlight around it to build up that kind of glow. Mix the golden yellow with the orange, and this golden yellow is awesome. It's got amazing coverage, it's really powerful, so it's perfect for doing this. And again, I just build that up quite fine in the center now, and where I've got the yellow patch in the middle, I copy that and just do the edge only underneath this time, so I don't edge the whole thing for the glow underneath. And then I go to pure golden yellow, just slowly building up that intensity. Just quickly going to a still photo of the eyes, and I really like this look with the glow in the center, and I think it's quite a nice contrast in terms of effects because everything else is so weathered, and it's kind of cool to have the saturated glowing eyes. So yeah, this was pretty good. I think I did the glow on the edge a little bit too broad, and I needed to go back in with a grey and tighten that up. So just take it easy and just try and be neat as possible if you decide to have that glow going onto the armour. But certainly the golden yellow as a highlight is really vibrant, and it's awesome. I painted the guts for my dead body with Cadian flesh, and then just did a quick highlight of Cadian flesh and white. And you can see how that oil is dried now, and it's really natural. It looks like kind of earth or rust or something has just sat in there, and that is why we go for the oil wash. Super easy to use, and it looks amazing when it's dry. And this just makes it feel like something that's been in battle, not fresh out the factory. Of course, now I just smash a load of Blood for the Blood God over it. You can use Tamiya Clear Red. I think Blood for the Blood God is fantastic, and it just works. So yeah, I obviously just go for it. You don't have to be careful, but you can see how doing that pale flesh colour underneath just works really well, and this kind of shades it and does all the work for you. I carefully wash my sand with grey brown, and this just tints it. We're going to take advantage of the natural sand colour. So yeah, this is why I like to paint the raw sand. We need to make it look like it's painted, but we can kind of, take advantage of that. And also just the capillary action makes it work so well, and it's really fast. So yeah, I like to get the sand and then just sort of tint it with washes, and I think that looks really natural. And then do a slightly patchy dark wash, adding a little bit of burnt umber into that previous brown. And yeah, I just tried to do little patches of this for variation, but you can see some of the sand is kind of poking through, and the little individual rocks are adding some variety too. So a little bit of darker patches here and there, and I think it will look great. And I'll finish with just a little light sienna weathering powder, and again I'm just very careful in applying this. I also was quite sparing with it. I didn't need a lot. It's all to just add some variety so you don't have a monotone base. But yeah, I'm normally pretty heavy with the pigments, but in this case I was fairly light, just doing a patch here and there, because I was probably going to add quite a lot of blood to the base. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen if Blood for the Blood God mixes with a pigment, but we'll find out. I then tried airbrushing some Blood for the Blood God, and of course it works. You have to dilute it a little bit. I actually diluted it too much to start with and had to thicken it up. Just make sure you clean your airbrush out and it's fine, but this worked to have just a little tint of the red around where he's walked. And I actually, after I finished filming, just got a pot of Blood for the Blood God, and I added loads more to the claws and the feet, and yeah, I just added a lot of it. It was super fun, and I was really happy to have the base on, because then it didn't feel as if I was so over the top with the blood. But yeah, I don't know how many times I've added different layers of blood to this mini, but it's been fun. And here we have the final result, and personally I'm really, really happy with it. I think it looks super menacing. I love the colour scheme. I'm happy I stuck to my guns and did my limited palette of pretty much just the white and red. I just think it's so powerful, that colour scheme, that you really don't need anything else. And I hope looking at the finished model now, you can see all those different layers of weathering effects were really, really worth it. I'm actually shocked myself of the difference when we did that side by side of the middle stage to the end result. And yeah, the oil wash just added a lot. I think it tied everything together because it muted the white and it made the chips and stuff stand out not as much. So we actually reduced the contrast a bit, which I guess is surprising to some people. But the contrast is about the red and the white, and we don't need many other things, I guess. In the end, the blood effects are cool. I was really worried, but again, like I said, now I have the dead body with the guts hanging out. I think it works. I think people will get what this guy's about, and the claws just look absolutely brutal. So yeah, I'm really happy, and as you know, I'm always striving to make something look a little bit like those Forge World arts, and I think this is one of my closest ones, especially with that Red Butcher artwork, and of course the Contempt to Dread. So yeah, I'm really happy, and the glowing eyes were just a little cherry on the top, and when I was painting them it just changed the look of the model. Of course the face is still the focal point, and I don't know why I left the eyes till the end, because I normally do them first, but it was certainly a nice little way to finish the miniature. And then sticking it on the base, yeah, I couldn't help but have a little smile on my face because it's so over the top and cool and brutal. What a fun project this has been. It has taken me a long time, I must admit. I would consider this a gaming miniature. I've spent a long time on it, but I would do that for my army. This has taken me, 3 weeks to paint, and it's just one Dreadnaught. But I hope that's interesting for you guys to know the time investment to make models look like this. Even though it's for gaming, yeah, it just took me a while. And that's because I don't get loads and loads of time to paint. It's just a couple hours in an evening, but then you can just do one weathering effect or one of the steps. So I would do something like I did the bronze one evening, I did the silver the next, I did the oil washes after that, and hopefully that fits in with your kind of schedules as well. So as I'm not a full-time painter, I do emphasize with you guys that yeah, it's hard to find the time sometimes, but sticking it out and spending a couple weeks is worth it, so you get a really cool looking miniature. I think I'm going to have to do a Leviathan that matches this with 2 drills, but I should probably do some other tutorials for you guys first, because you don't want to see another one exactly the same as this. Anyway, I could ramble for ages about this mini, but yeah, the midway point, I was really not sure, but I pushed through. I did all those effects. I needed to trust the process, so I encourage you to trust the process. Get those oil paints on and have fun with it. Anyway, looking forward to your comments. It's been really great. I think I'm going to do a project very different to this next, probably some very shiny armor with some smooth blending or something. Anyway, have fun and see you soon.